Okay, so the other thing I wanted to show here was the shortening of the servo wires to get them to the right length and getting the sheathing on. So this is one of my old servos, or one of my existing servos, and this is the new replacement that I'm going to trim to that length. And so just going to take that off. And first things first, I'm just going to clip this off reasonably to the right length so that I don't have to feed more. It's kind of a pain feeding the wire through the paracord. It's a little bit stiff. There's just barely enough room because I wanted it to be fairly tight. So I don't like to feed more through it than I have to. I'm going to clip it off right there. So just clip the end off. And then here's my paracord, and so I'm just going to trim this off to the length. Get rid of that. This is really available all over the place, paracord. And then you got these nylon wires on the inside, so I just strip those out, get rid of them, toss them out, and then you're left with your sheath. And I just melt the ends a little bit so that it doesn't unravel on me. That, and then you just feed it through, just feed the wires through. It's easiest if you kind of bend these wires over a little bit, make it like a triangle rather than flat, so that it goes through a little bit easier. And once you get it started a little bit, then what you got to do is kind of walk it like a caterpillar through and crimp it up, pinch it, hold the wire, kind of like the Chinese finger torture things, and just kind of work your way down. There we go. So now I got the paracord on there, and then I just take a little bit of heat shrink tubing, just a small chunk of it at the end. Let's see if I grab the right size, or if I have to grab a smaller one, or I mean a bigger one. Nope, there we go. So I just throw that down the end here. Over the end, and give it a quick heating to protect the end of the wire, and that's the heat shrink part. So now I get that protected, and now I got to put the connector on the end. And these are the connectors here. They're crimp connectors, and I'm a gearhead from way back, and so I happen to have this tool laying around. I'm sure you can find them on eBay, but they're a crimp tool, and inside of one side there's like a little it's a W shape that takes that wire that crimp that's like this and bends it over and pulls it in like this to pinch the wire. And I got these connectors right off eBay. They're you know, Futaba, I think was what they were sold as, Futaba connectors. But it's the type of connector that you need for that job. And I cut it a little bit long, so I need to trim off just a little bit extra because the wires end right around here. So pop that off, and then you simply pull these apart. And I always just take the connector that I just cut off to leave around as a model. So I'm going to have them orange, red, brown like that with the crimp up. And take your crimp piece off. And I just strip a little bit of wire off of the end. It doesn't need very much. A little bit more than that. So just a little tiny bit. Twist them off. And all you do is take your crimp connector there and you put it in the tool. There's two pieces to the crimp. One's the wire and one holds the sheath. So I always do the wire first. Don't officially know if that's right, but it works for me. And it makes them good and sturdy. And I want the bulk part of the connector to be up so that it's sticking up that way, because there's a flat side and then there's an open side. So I do it that way and start. So I start with the orange, and all you do is stick it in there inside, and then you crimp it down. A good tight crimp. And I'm not sure if this is going to come out, but now you can see, let's see if I can get it focused in here. So this is the part that's going to connect to the wire, and this part, or to the sheath, to the outside of the wire, and this part here is the part that I just crimped, that first part. So you crimp the first, and then you slide it in, and you crimp the second part. Back at the back. Give it a good crimp. And now, I don't know if this is going to come out in the camera or not, but now it's crimped. And so you just do that for all three, and then slip in the connector. So it's really not hard to shorten the wires. It's pretty easy, and I think, at least in a 450 size helicopter, I think it makes it a lot easier, a lot cleaner, one, for the look, but two, the bigger issue for me was the maintainability. Not having all that extra wire in there makes it easier for me to replace broken components, you know, strip components when I crash the helicopter, which I've had a couple of small ones, and then this last one was pretty big. And I suspect there are more in my future as I'm a newbie, as I think probably many of us are that are following CPO's video for the Turo build anyways. I think a lot of us are newbies. And so my biggest thing was I wanted it to be easy to fix the helicopter without having to take a ton of stuff apart. And I think having the proper length wires on the servos makes that just immensely easier to access everything. And I know CPO talked about that he now does everything external, all his wiring external, and doesn't worry about keeping it clean. So there's different opinions. I mean, part of it for me is definitely liking the clean look, but like I said, I think the bigger piece is the maintainability. So now that it's together, now all I got to do is just slip the connectors inside until they clip. Sometimes they're a little tight. Sometimes they're a little tight and can use a little persuasion. Just a little push down in there with like a pin. There we go. It's together. So now I've got a spare servo there with the right length wire on it. So that's it. It's pretty easy to do. The connectors were pretty cheap. I think it was like, I don't know, 10 bucks for 20 of them or something like that. It was pretty cheap. The most expensive part is probably going to be this crimp tool, and I would suggest getting a good one. The cheap ones don't really work, and it's much nicer to do it right the first time than have the wire slip out and not be able to do it. There is a little bit of an art to it. Once you do it a couple of times, you'll get it down, and it won't be a big deal. So that's it.